Smoke. OVS. Old Virginia Smoke. Old Virginia.
This podcast is brought to you by the Kansas City BBQ Store, the official provider of barbecue supplies to listeners of Pitmaster. It's fall, it's football season, and holidays are right around the bend. That doesn't mean that the grilling and smoking stops. From smokers and fuel to rubs and sauces, the Kansas City BBQ Store has everything and anything you could want. Make the Kansas City BBQ Store your one-stop shop for all your outdoor cooking needs. As a listener of the Old Virginia Smoke Pitmaster podcast, you can get 10% off of your order this fall by using the code PITPOD, PITPOD, for online orders at www.thekansascitybbqstore.com. So keep on smoking, folks. Welcome to another episode of Pitmaster, an Old Virginia Smoke podcast. My name is Luke Darnell, Pitmaster of Old Virginia Smoke and host of this podcast. And it is my pleasure to have with us somebody we've had a pretty good run of guests here who've had pretty good fall seasons and winter seasons here. And now we've got Jordan Kirkpatrick from Janky Leg on. How you doing, man?
Good, buddy. How are you?
Good. You had a really good fall.
We did have a good fall.
Chicken World Champion. That sounds pretty good, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does. It was a big weekend.
Yeah, that's great, man. So you're out of Illinois.
Yep.
Had the pleasure of meeting you probably more than a few times now. I think we've been at a bunch of contests together.
Yeah, we were at. You were there at Tim and Brad's class this past year while I was there.
That's right. I was kind of half attending, half partying.
Hey, you gotta enjoy it when you can.
That's true. And then we were together at that snowy contest in Indianapolis.
CCS Fest.
Yes.
I got the brakes beat off me there.
I had 4 8th places.
Oh, jeez.
No, yeah. I think it was even 5. I think we got 4 8s in categories and then 8th place overall. And I was like, wow, that's nice.
Yeah, it was cold there. You were out of a U-Haul there, weren't you?
Yeah, we had
Yes.
We took the J3 and we got a U-Haul and we had it up to like 55 degrees in there with the space heater and but that ramp was so icy.
Yeah, you were behind Tire Smoke that weekend, weren't you?
Yep. Yeah.
Yep. They're such good guys, man.
They're good dudes, and as a matter of fact, right, sitting here on the desk is a Tire Smoke sanctioned head wrap.
That is legit.
Yeah, they gave me a package of these at the Royal this year, so yeah, I'm looking forward. I didn't break them out this year because I don't know, I'm pretty superstitious, but with the new year, I'm going to give them a shot, see how it goes. So let's get into it, man. Like, how has your career and life experiences outside of barbecue prepared you to be a pitmaster on the competition trail?
So career-wise, I've been in sales my whole life. I've always been competitive, pretty much anybody in barbecue is, but I've always been super competitive in high school. I played sports and then once, getting into a sales position, and being on a commission pay plan, you pretty much you got to put your best foot forward pretty well every day if you want to be successful. I know a lot of people that are in sales, it's hit or miss and you say the feast or famine type deal, but I've always been one to strive to be better, On top of that, I've always flipped homes, done remodeling, just kind of, I have a property company where we have rental units and we flip houses. And I've done, before I opened the dealership, I've done the carpentry side of it. And attention to detail has always been a big thing for me. I'm pretty meticulous. I like my barbecue trailer to be clean. I like my truck to be clean. we went to a comp one time and they tried putting us out in the field and it was raining, and I'm like, my truck has never really seen the mud. And, everybody gives me a hard time about that, but it's just it's always how I've been. I would say just in general, I guess being OCD,
I was going to ask, is this at the OCD level that you?
No, sure. I'm just that way, and in barbecue, it's the minuscule things are the things that most people overlook that I feel like we've really honed into that kind of it has made us improve. In the beginning, you feel like you're being picky and you're doing all the things right. And when in hindsight, you have zero clue what you're doing. And then once you start to really kind of pick up on things that work, then you really start to dial in on those particular things that really start to evolve you as a pit master on the competition circuit and really just kind of move forward. And that's, as it is, that's anything, Once you start to find something that works, once you can really start dialing on that on any aspect in life, you start to succeed.
Right. No, and you said a couple of key things there. I think, part of it is hustle. I mean,
Sure.
you've got to stay in your program, stay with what you do, and then I could turn this camera around and show you how not OCD I am, and you could look at this desk, and it would probably give you convulsions. But the only thing that I am OCD about is my process and what happens in the trailer. And I probably take it to an unhealthy point sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
I've been accused recently of being a little bit of a tyrant. And but I just feel like there's a way that I do things, and that way has been pretty successful. So I like it to be done that way. And I think a lot of pit masters are the same way.
Oh, I have yelled at my wife once in the middle of pork turning, and I think that's the only time one time was enough for me to realize not to do that again. But I think my exact words was, "This is how I want it done, and if you don't want to do it that way, then just get out." And she walked out. And then once she left, I was like, "Shit! Why did she?" And I looked out the side of the trailer, and she's sitting on the step looking on Facebook. I'm like, "Are you done?" She's like, "You do it yourself." And I was like, "Well, all right, that backfired." So at that point in time, that was one and done for me. I pretty much sucked ass the rest of that week and the next week, and got her back in good graces. So, yeah,
it's I don't do that. I never try to act out. But Kim has said just my general demeanor, especially if I'm like super focused, and I'm going to start trying to work on that. But at the same time, I don't really want to.
Yeah, well, and like that one there, it was one of those things where I was like, I don't remember what comp it was, but it was just one of those things where I was like, it needs to be done this way. And she's like, "No, I like it this way." I was like, "No, I want it done this way." And we just back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. And our buddy that cooks with us, he was like, "Would you guys make up your mind?" And it's going to be this way. But, yeah, I think now, that was, maybe that was 2 years ago. Now I feel like we've got a pretty smooth process where we just kind of know what to do and what direction to, we don't even really need to talk to anyone.
Right.
Pretty much what movements to make.
Yeah, we barely speak anymore. It's not necessary, and rarely anymore do we even argue about what should go in the box. Because and she'll hate me for saying this, and she'll yell at me for saying this, but like Kim is one of the most indecisive people in the world. Whereas I am severely disorganized and a mess, she is completely indecisive. Except when it comes to barbecue.
Mm-hmm.
Like, if she doesn't think something's be in the box, she's going to let me know.
Right.
And I'm like, why can't you be like this whenever we're trying to figure out where to go out for dinner?
Yeah. I don't think that's in their blood. I can't even say it's them. It's me, too. I'm always like, yeah, whatever. But, and on ours, on our team, I'm the only one who tries our food. I just felt like, to be honest, this year was the first year that I cooked by myself. I'd never done a comp solo, and fortunate enough, I did it 3 times and granded twice and got third the other time. And I think once that happened, we just kind of all sat down and talked, and I was always the one who would try it, but while I was trying it to determine, they would be taking a bite of something, or I'd give them a half of one. And it was never like they would go against the grain on what I thought should go in the box, but I would be like, oh, yeah, that's the texture. And Allie'd be like, is it? Or, almost getting in my own head where I would try to decide what to go. So now we've just all come to the agreement that pretty much I'll be the only one to try the food. I'll determine what goes in the box, and then I can live and die with the consequences and go from there.
It's interesting how people have their different ways of doing that.
Mm-hmm.
In our situation is very different because it could be 3 different people in the trailer, and
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there's definitely a hierarchy as to whose opinion I'm going to care about more.
Yeah.
But sometimes you're right, like especially with pork. If I eat it and I like it, I really don't care,
Right.
because I think I know what I'm looking for, but a lot of people would argue that I don't know what I'm looking for in pork. So it's the biggest. Yeah, I'm going to take advice from somebody that Mike from QL was on here, and he said best advice I ever got was take your worst meat, make it your best meat, and I'll be doing that this off season. So lots of pork butts are going to be cooked in this house.
Yeah.
Yeah, I got to figure it out. So.
I tell you, man, Tim and Brad's class really, the one that you were at, that's really the reason that I had taken that class was I really wanted to pull something away from pork. And not even the cooking technique, because I don't cook pork on a can.
Right.
Mine was just more of, I described it as like, it's about like shooting 1,000 free throws blindfolded. You're practicing daily, but you don't even know what you're shooting at.
Right.
So my biggest thing when I took that class was I wanted to determine what the actual texture, when I tasted it, when I felt it. I just wanted to know what texture they were hitting so I could try to mimic it. And once I don't know why, I'd taken many classes before and everyone else's pork was great. But once I took their class, tried that pork, and I got kind of the mouthfeel and what it felt like when I was squeezing on the monies, pork just really turned around for us.
Quit spending my money. We love to talk about our successes on these shows and stuff like this, but one of my favorite things to talk about is failures. Do you have a favorite failure of yours during a competition that really set you up for success later?
I don't know if it set me up for success, and it may not have changed the outcome. And it's easy for me to sit here, 3 months later, 2 months later, and say, so at the Jack, I was pretty ill, and we had a great cook, I thought, but I was pretty rough the whole day, and we had got to brisket. The brisket looked great, everything. I mean, it cooked, felt great, everything. But whenever we got to brisket, I had been puking the majority of the day, and I was kind of over it. But it was a Jack, so you're like, you
got to get her done, yeah.
So we had sliced the brisket. And we had a fat seam that ran through the brisket, and it wasn't like it was on the edge. It was pretty. So whenever we started slicing it, I was kind of just testing it, and when I picked the slice up, I mean, where that seam was, as soon as I grabbed the slice, it fell completely apart, and I was like, "Great, well." Finish slicing the brisket. I get everything out, kind of the area that I'm wanting. And as I told you before, normally I kind of make the decision and go. Well, I was feeling terrible, so I'm asking, like, what do you guys think we should do? That is going to fall apart. I'm telling you, it's going to fall apart. And I feel like our texture, no matter what happens, it could look great. But I feel like as soon as they grab that slice and it falls apart, they're going to ding us on texture, on tenderness. And anyway, long and short of it, this kind of banter back and forth went on for about 3 minutes. And I got frustrated. And I'm like, you know what? I don't even care. If you think that, because they're like, well, if we dock it, it's going to be so short. I'm like, I'd rather it be short slices and have the right texture, because it was a great texture. It was just that fat seam was gonna fall apart.
Kill it, yeah.
Anyway, long and short, I finally said, screw it. If you want to leave it, leave it. But this is on you. Pretty much is how the word was going to be said. And I was frustrated and sick. So we get it boxed. It looked great, but I just knew it was. I just knew it, and I didn't even stick around. She left the box, and I went and laid down. And when I got back up, I'd come back outside, and they're like, "So what do you think about the cook?" I said, "Honestly, I felt like it was a pretty good cook." But I've learned my lesson. I do not say it's a good cook. So I just told him, I said, I feel like our first three categories, and really that was kind of 2022 for us. If we could have stopped at pork and never had to turn in brisket, we would have, team of the year would have been a solid year for us. But sure enough, we won chicken there at the Jack. I think got 21st in ribs, got 5th in pork, and got 58th or something in brisket. And, it's like, I think it was, I don't know. I think I cooked a 161 brisket.
Oh, wow.
161 or 162, And you sit and you look back, you miss a grand by. It's just one of those. And it's easy for me to say here and sit and go, oh, that could have been mine. But
right.
That's just me being a sore loser, I guess. But really, I guess that was probably my biggest disappointment, honestly. I still to this day kick myself because if I would have been feeling good, I would have pretty much been like, just move. I'm docking this brisket and we're moving on. But I didn't, and that's on me. So. Yeah,
well, I mean, that's when you're under that stress, and especially the stress of not feeling well, that's hard to, you're in the moment. You gotta. That's a tough one, though, dude. That's a tough one with those 3 other calls.
I mean, it is what it is. But hell, Schaefer, he's Mr. World Champ. He knows when to show up.
Talk about a slump buster there, man. My gosh.
Yeah, man, I was like, I'm just sitting there looking at him like, because, we pretty much talk every weekend after comps, and I'm like, this dude. I'm talking to him driving home, and he's telling me, I just don't get it. I don't know what's going on. And sure enough, he comes and puts the old dog walking on all of us at the world. And so,
yep.
Another world champion under his belt.
This podcast is brought to you by BarbecueData.com. BarbecueData.com is your one-stop shop for all of your barbecue competition data. Historical data, calls, wins, placements, everything under one roof. It's a great way not only to track yourself in the standings, but also to track how you improve your scores from year to year. Listeners of this podcast can receive 20% off of a new subscription to BarbecueData.com with the code PITPOD. That's one word, all capital letters, PITPOD, PITPOD. So check your team scores, check on others, and do it all on BarbecueData.com. So what has been the most surprising thing to come out of competition barbecue for you?
I don't know. Probably just growth, honestly. When we first started, in 20, I think we first started smoking meat in 2017, and did our first competition in 2018. I didn't know what I was a cook, really. I enjoy, like, I would rather make up an Alfredo sauce than light up a smoker. Like I enjoy. Um, and I just picked up smoking meat from my boss in the car business, and he was kind of the man when it come to smoking meat. And anyway, I guess the biggest takeaway, aside from what pretty much everyone will say about barbecue, is the relationships that you build. But I think for me is just the growth as a competitor. I knew that if I was going to do this, I'm an all in person, and I study a lot. Pretty much anything that I do, I study the craft.
Yeah.
And I had in Murfreesboro, Illinois, in 2018, when the barbecue league had all their teams there. I think they were kind of doing just, in my opinion, kind of the elite teams were on that. I didn't know much at that time, but I knew that they kind of had their own little scoring system or something where they were doing comps together. And I had met Tim at Effingham, our very first comp, and he was just treated me like we had been friends for 20 years,
Mm-hmm.
And Murfreesboro would have been our third comp ever. And Tim, he come back and we're in the back 40 under a tent, and Tim walks up and it's the whole crew, and he's like, "You got a beer for me now or what?" I'm like, "Yeah." And I just remember about like anyone who gets started in anything, you look up to certain people and you kind of try to emulate how to become those cooks.
Right.
And I just remember telling Allie, at that time when they left, she was like, "Who the hell is that?" I'm like, "Well, that was some of those guys there are the Mount Rushmore of barbecue. You've got guys like Joe and Travis Clark and Blaine was there. I mean, there was a group of people there. And I just think the evolvement of our team and, how far we've come from I look and think about some of the turn-ins that we had in the beginning and where it's like that. I shouldn't say it's a surprise to me, but I think that the grasp that barbecue has on me, it's almost undescribable. I think about, I compare it to my career. I sell cars. I run a car dealership, and when I'm not focusing on trying to sell a car, I'm focusing on trying to improve in barbecue. And I just think that that's, for me, it's almost like, it's not surreal, but to think that I can take that meat that 5 years ago, if you put a brisket in front of me, I wouldn't know what the flat or point side is. I think to have studied that much about barbecue, to feel like I know more than the average Joe or average guy at a restaurant who's throwing ribs on a Old Hickory, who may not look at the, all the different aspects it takes to create super tender food.
Right.
Or something that, I guess, just overall, the amount of investment I've put into barbecue surprises me. I never thought that this hobby would drive me so much.
It's a sickness, right? I mean, I think it's a good sickness.
It's a sickness that I would take this sickness about 9 months out of the year.
Yeah, absolutely. I get it, man. And it's, I think about it all the time when I'm working, and it's like, this sucks, but, I get to go cook a contest in 2 weeks. So,
sure.
And I just get real excited about it. I was looking at the calendar this morning, getting real excited about it. And, just putting everything together is, it's a puzzle. It's a game. And it's trying to figure it out. And, so I have a couple questions here that I haven't been asking people, but I'm going to start asking them again because I think they're important. Because I think we're at a very pivotal time in competition barbecue in that I think we do have I think it's growing the amount of new people that we have coming in, but that has to be as sustained, I think. So, what advice would you give to a smart young cook who's about to enter the world of competition barbecue?
First thing I would say is don't be intimidated to talk to teams that compete often. I had a guy in 2020, I believe. He was doing a backyard at a double, and he cooked day one, I believe, but he wasn't cooking day two. And he come up and he said, "Hey, I've heard about your team. I was curious if you would be open to me shadowing you." First off, I looked around. I'm like, this guy's heard wrong things about me. I could count about 8 teams I would go shadow before he asked me. Come to find out, I think he asked 2, and they told him no. But anyway, I said, "Yeah, man, be here at 4 o'clock tomorrow morning, and you can watch what you want." And I just saw him this past weekend at an event, at an awards banquet for SLBS, and it's just cool to see him kind of evolve. Like I was telling you, you never know what barbecue is going to do for you. So if I was a new cook in barbecue and I was going to do it all over again, I would. It's about like anything. I keep relating this to business and life.
No, that's fine. That's perfect, dude.
Life. I mean, it's a network. When I got into sales, you kind of become who you surround yourself with. So if you want to be a top-notch golfer, you're not going to go hang out with the football players. So if you want to become someone in barbecue, or not even someone in barbecue, because we're all someone in barbecue, but if you want to become, it depends on what level. I've got a couple friends who cook 7 comps a year.
Right.
They could pull into any parking lot and win any weekend if they cooked 40 comps a year. I've got friends who cook 35 comps a year. It's about what you want to become. So if you get into barbecue and you just want to be able to say, "Hey, I want to cook some of these backyard comps, and whenever it comes time for Thanksgiving or Christmas or 4th of July, I want to knock my buddy's socks off who thinks he's the man." I think that's great. I think you should put in what you want to get out. So if you want to be Luke Darnell, trash out there, I want one of those square trophies from the Royal that you have, so my focus is, how do I get to that point? So I think that if you're just getting started, obviously the barbecue league is huge. There's so many things out there to learn from the jump, but when I first started, I can't tell you the number of times I would sell a car. I would do the paperwork. I would see my customer out the door, and by the time they hit the highway, I was on How to Barbecue Right, or I was watching YouTube, or I was doing it. I was infatuated with how these people took these cuts of meat and turned them into perfection, But I guess to sum it all up, obviously I'm a salesperson. I can get long-winded. To sum it all up, I would start out, probably spend $100 on barbecue league. I would befriend some people in barbecue. And you never know. You may have something to offer them that they're not thinking about. You hear these guys who do classes all the time say, sometimes I just listen. And these guys and these teams tell us, this is what I'm doing. And in hindsight, they're taking notes from the people who just paid you $750 to take the class.
That's so amazing you just said that. I just had a conversation with Bill Gillespie from Smoking Hogs, and he had his class this weekend, and he goes, everybody there wanted to tell me what they did or something else they learned. He goes, it was annoying, he goes, but I learned a few things.
Yeah, and then lastly, I would just get out there and cook. I mean, I would select a few weekends, talk to people in barbecue, find out a few top notch comps that are just good times. When you get started, you want to be able to hang out, enjoy the town. Find some places with some good restaurants, find a good venue where there's going to be asphalt. You're not out in a field, and just I would enjoy the process of turning into what you want to be in barbecue.
That's cool, man. That's awesome. Let's switch gears a little bit into gear a little bit. You mentioned the barbecue league, and I'm going to also outlaw the answer of Thermapen. But do you have a purchase of $100 or less that has significantly impacted your competition barbecue game?
Mm,
Like a tool or something?
yeah, so I mean, I could think of a couple. I don't know that. Obviously, I've listened to your podcast a ton, so I'm trying not to mimic what someone else says.
Oh, that's totally fine if you do.
Like like an offset spatula is big for me. I think I think it's a 9-inch or maybe 10-inch icing spatula. We transfer ribs with. I scrape bones whenever I go to wrap ribs with it. I take and I pull the fat membrane off the tubes whenever I go to process those with it. I mean, I just kind of use it instead of trying to. A knife is fine, but I just know me. I wear flip flops when I cook. I could just see myself dropping a knife and sinking into the top of my foot. That I cook on an offset, so a good pump sprayer.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's Solo. I think is maybe the company. They've got I think like a 6-inch wand on it, so I can get back further into my pit to spray the meat, and a good pair of scissors. I think those
huge.
Those are big.
You're one of those flip flop guys, huh?
Hey man, I was actually just going to say a good pair of flip flops and a good cutoff t-shirt.
Don't listen to any of this, folks. Wear shoes when you cook. Protect your feet.
Now I'll spill some good hot au jus off of my pork butts onto them, and I cuss a bit, but man, I used to joke around. Before I was in the car business, I was in the furniture business. I wore suit or shirt and tie every day. Got into the car business. Always had dress shoes on. When I opened my own dealership, I joked around and said, in the summertime, I'll be in a polo and a nice pair of shorts and flip flops. I'm not. If you don't buy a car for me because I'm not in dress slacks, that's your own problem. I'm a flip flop and cut off t-shirt guy. There's nothing 300-pound man with a muscle shirt on, but I think it looks good. And it's a joke because the very first contest we ever did, I had a bright orange Janky Leg t-shirt made, because I had to be official, and it was bright orange. That was the only 4X t-shirt that they had at that time, I think. And I mean, it was like construction orange. And I told Allie, I said, I'm going to cut these sleeves off because I don't want there to be this much fabric, this bright, trying to point me out. So I'm just going to have the cutoff on. Well, 4 years later, I still got that T-shirt, and I still try to wear it about every week.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So that means that you do have a lot of habits, rituals, routines, superstitious.
Kind of not habits and routines, but I would say I'm kind of. I've got a few things.
Come on, let them out. Let them out.
On Friday when I inject meat, man, since I moved out on my own when I was 18, I moved a little over an hour from my hometown, so I didn't have my parents or anything, and I was running a company, and I've always been a candle guy, so always like my house to smell good. So Fridays, I light a candle in my trailer, and I don't like like fruity smells, man. I like put like some cinnamon pecan honey bun or something fragrance out there that I'm in. So yeah, I light a candle every Friday. Uh, I've got two pair of flip flops until my dog eats it. I flipped out one week because my dog had ate the where the your toe slides into your flip flop, and there was nothing there, and I kind of flipped out on that. Uh, but yeah, the candle's probably the biggest thing for me.
Does anybody else? Did anybody know about the candle thing before now?
Oh yeah.
Because I gotta tell you, I'm bringing you a candle every time we come together.
So I'll get text messages from buddies, and it'll say "good luck" with a little fire flame behind it, or like another person will send me like a lit candle, and it's like, yeah, man, it's you come into my trailer, it smells good though. I will say that.
I gotta be honest with you. Between your aversion to mud and dirt, your need for pavement, and your candle things, like, man, I think I found somebody more high maintenance of barbecue than me.
Hey man, I, I I'll tell you like I tell everybody else. I like what I like, and what I like a lot of it.
That's amazing. So, your competition week, do you do the same things every day? Do you have the same
Yes,
schedule you try and keep?
yes,
Yeah.
yep. I sure
That's,
do. So, uh, well, now I didn't used to, but now when I get briskets, I try to thaw, like partially thaw them and then trim them and refreeze them. I used to always just trim brisket the week of the comp, but this year with the number of comps that we did, I'd get to a point where I'd have one thawed, trim it, and then it wasn't good enough. I'd have to go try to power thaw one,
right.
and so I just if I buy three or four at a time, I trim them all and then I just grade them out. Or if I've got 4 or 5 comps coming up, I'll try to name off what brisket I want to take to what comp, um, and go from there.
And then
But
you'll
yeah,
refreeze them.
I'm sorry,
You'll refreeze them?
I do.
Oh, wow.
Yep. Um, so like if I order a brisket in and it's frozen, I'll just partially thaw it where it's not thawed completely, but it's pliable enough where I can separate it and just trim it up, and then I vac pack it and freeze it back up.
So but then you get an idea of what you got.
Yeah, if it's thick enough or if the marbling's right, or just try to predetermine it. So I do that whenever I order them, but most of the time on chicken, I do chicken normally on Monday nights, and then Tuesday I'll do collars and ribs. Wednesday, I do all my sausage injections and then load up and ready to go either Thursday or Friday.
Right on. That's cool. When you start the year out, do you set goals for your team?
We do, yeah. Um, last year, we had set some goals. Really, I didn't. My big thing is probably my biggest downfall is I'm easy to get down on myself. I set very high expectations, and then when I don't attain that goal, I really am just kind of more frustrated at myself, and then start letting that get into my head. Um, we had wanted to. I tell you, last year our goals were basically we cook Effingham, Illinois comp, and that's the big Bose butcher blocks. They for Grand Champion and Reserve they put out the big tabletop Bose block, which I don't even know what the value of it is, but it's awesome. So last year, goal was to try to get one of those butcher blocks because we had never even got a top 5 because they make mini blocks. We ended up granting that comp, so we got a sweet uh, trophy, and then really just we wanted to try to win 3 comps was our goal for this past year, and yeah. This year, to be honest with you, I don't really have any other goal. We got pretty fortunate towards the end of the season, and we got 3 grands, so we have 3 draws for the Jack.
Nice.
My only goal this year would really if possible, would be to auto into the Jack.
That's a good one. That's a
about
good one.
that's really the only focus for me this year.
Right on. You listen to music when you cook?
Oh yeah,
Oh wow. Okay, let's get into
but
it.
I go from Thug Central to Whitey Morgan to Stone Loc to Candy Rain. I mean,
That's
I
awesome.
I my mother growing up, I was raised in a dance studio. My mom was a dance instructor.
Oh wow.
I've I've listened to yeah. I like all music. Let's just put it that way. I was my mom's my mom's guinea pig. I was in her dance classes growing up, and uh, yeah. So I like all music.
That's awesome. You got to have a variety in there.
Yeah,
It's
man.
it's real important in our trailer too. It's got to be a nice balance, and yeah, that's awesome, man. Wow, we've talked for a while already, and I've barely asked you anything. You are a talker.
I got time if you got time.
Well, I mean, I still have lots of. I have to ask you the rapid fire questions. These are my favorites.
That's fine. We can do whatever you want, buddy. I sold a car for the day, so very, very in.
You already hit the goal. Already hit the goal of the day. What do you see about barbecue on social media that upsets or bothers you?
Uh, um, my opinion, politics aren't meant for barbecue. I think that I don't. I guess I don't know enough of the ins and outs of what goes on behind closed doors to really get involved with it, and I try my very best to keep my opinion out of things that I don't know much about. Uh, I read like everybody else does and kind of see what everyone has to say. And there's some things I disagree on, and there's some things that I agree on, but I don't feel like I'm in a position to really put out my opinion because I don't know that my opinion is going to change anything. And maybe I have no interest ever in doing that, but I guess until I was in a position to maybe my opinion meant something, maybe I would voice it then. I just don't feel like politics are on barbecue. The other thing is kind of the segregation from pro teams to backyard teams. Man, if you're cooking barbecue and you don't have means to cook a 4-meat contest every week, you have no interest in cooking a brisket, and you want to stay in backyard, that's your call. If you're the most dominant backyard cook to ever step foot in KCBS and that's where you choose to stay, that's on you. That's bearing on me. And hell, if you're that good, I don't know if I want you coming to the pro side.
No, good answers, man. Yeah, good answers. I'm very. That question is going to get asked of me very soon.
Sure.
Yeah, you're episode 98. I don't know if you knew that. You'll be episode 98, and then 99 will be our first guest of all time, Bill Gillespie.
Nice.
And then I will be guest 100, and I will be, yeah. So I'm scared of that question because I have some opinions. And it's weird when you have to think about how you're going to answer your own questions, but
Sure.
yeah. Do you have a favorite pre, during, or post competition meal?
Uh, mm, not really.
No.
I get coaxed into going to eat Mexican. My wife hates it because normally we travel to comms separately.
Uh-huh.
She works for the state of Illinois, and sometimes she doesn't have the time to take off. So I'll be at a comp, and I'll get with a group of friends who their tradition is Mexican before barbecue, and I am not even a Mexican fan. So I'll go with them, and she's like, "Well, that's bullshit. You don't even go eat Mexican with me." Yeah, well, I hear. So I guess a tradition would be Mexican. I guess you'd say, not by choice, but because I'm a follower, I guess. But post meal, man, I'm an ice cream fan. I don't have a freezer, so I normally try to bum somebody's freezer. They got ice cream in their trailer. If you see me pumping up to your trailer and I catch wind that you've got ice cream sandwiches, I'm coming.
So ice cream sandwiches and candles. I got it. Do you have a favorite present that you like to give to people?
Yeah, so you see the painting behind me. I know one on the podcast will, but I have a buddy of mine who I sold cars with years ago. We became really good friends, and I kind of showed him the ropes in the car business. And I remember walking past his office one day. I used to sell for Chrysler, and there was this painting of this Jeep Wrangler, and it was like all psychedelic, but it was awesome. And I remember walking, I was like, what is this? Where did you get that? And I've always been big into art. And he was like, I painted that. It's like, yeah, right. He's like, no, I paint. I was like, you're an artist? Yeah. Well, I'm a pretty diehard Michael Jordan fan. And so it just kind of opened the vault. And I've had him paint. I've probably got, I don't know, 12, 13 Michael Jordan paintings. And I've given gifts. I've contacted him a lot. I'm probably this is really making myself sound bad, but I like to keep my stuff clean. I'm an emotional person. I've always been a big
man. You're quickly moving up my list of barbecue people.
I've always been very. I probably wear my emotions a little stronger than most people. Not to get too long-winded. I'm sorry, but
no.
Just basically for me is I'm in the relationship business. I know I'm a car salesman, and most people think I'm a sleazeball, but I'm not that guy. My focus is to earn your business and your trust. If I can help you today, and then 10 years down the road, I can help your daughter or whoever it is that's turning 16. That's my focus. So I've always had a strong passion about relationships and friendships and things of that nature. And, a prime example, just kind of off the cuff recently, really good friends with Lynn and Paul from Rooters and Tutors. Yeah. They unfortunately lost their dog Maverick, and my son Hayes is 3 years old, and he loved that dog. We have pictures. Hayes has been barbecuing with us since he was, a newborn baby. I think he went to his first comp at 3 months old.
Oh, wow.
And we've just Maverick passed away, and we knew we wouldn't see Lynn and Paul until the World Invitational. And I had just sent pictures of Maverick and their new puppy to my buddy who paints and said, hey, man, I just want you to put this inspirational quote on it with these two dogs. And we would just kind of want to let them know we're thinking of them. And he knocked that painting out of the park. It was awesome. And we gifted it to them at this year at the Worlds. And it's just always been if you ever want a painting, let me know. I've got you.
Man.
You tell me what you like, and we can figure it out, man. Christmas gift.
Yeah, you've moved up my list of people in barbecue to hang out with more. It's people that like art. Huh.
I am an art fan.
Me too. All right, last question. If you could have a gigantic billboard anywhere with anything on it, getting a message out to millions or billions, what would it say and why?
I give a speech at my high school. I was invited to come talk at a high school graduation, and I've always just felt the same. I think whatever we strive to be in life, some people it's money, some people it's being kind, some people it's having a big family. I just think we all have the same opportunity to leave a legacy. And I think I would put that on a billboard. Just pretty simple.
Yeah.
You kind of make your life what you want it to be.
Yeah. No, that's great, man. No, I've really enjoyed this conversation. We need to do it again. I only got to half the questions. So
it's Allie, we real quick and then we'll be done. We went and did one of the world food events, and So we had got up there, and at that point you have to kind of display and sell your product of what you cook. And we had, the kick of it was a wild card, so you got to pick whatever you want. And we had decided to smoke a cheesecake on our drum. So we smoked a big cheesecake, and then we smoked 6 little small individual round cheesecakes. I put it on this nice platter. So anyway, we get up there, and I'm just, the whole time she's like, get to the point. I'm like, I'm gonna work my way to it. We're building a story, Ellie. So we get up there, and I just giving it to these people. And there's 6 judges. One of them's famous Dave Anderson. There's a player from University of Tennessee. Anyway, I'm like, now listen, we smoked and chilled the cheesecake, in 5 hours. And if you know anything about making a cheesecake, that's hard to chill it. So I went back to my old heavy younger days of power chilling beer, and we put kosher salt in the cooler. And so anyway, I look to my left, and Allie is staring a hole through me. The next person with their tray is trying to turn in, and I'm still selling this product. She's like, get off the stage. You're driving me nuts. So we get off, and she's like, Jordan. I'm like, let me tell you something. You work for the state. I sell stuff. Just let me do my thing. So we end up winning that comp, and we got first place. And we get into the truck to leave, and I look over at her, and she's like, don't even say a word. Don't say a word. I'm like, well, I'm just letting you know. We won People's Choice, and we won that category, and I had to sell on both of them. So get away from me.
Oh, that's a great story. When we turned in at World Foods in the finals, they told us very specifically that we were not to speak and do that. And I went first. So I'm a rule follower.
Yeah.
So they're asking me questions, I'm answering them. I sit back down. Well, then every other bastard gets up there and they're just going on and on and on. I'm sitting there staring at Kim, and she's staring at me going, you missed, this was made for you, and you sat there and followed the rules and shut up. And I'm like, I did what they told me to do.
Yeah. I don't know if it's a doubt. I don't know. It's got me through life so far. It could be a downfall. There's no doubt I can get long.
I don't think it's a downfall at all, bud. Well, listen, where can people find you online?
You can just add me on Facebook, Jordan Kirkpatrick. We do have a Janky Leg BBQ Facebook page. Other than that, man, just message me, get my cell phone number. We'll text from everyone.
All right, bud. Well, I look forward to seeing you out there, and thanks for being on. I appreciate it.
All right, man. Be careful. Thanks.
Yep. Thank you for listening to Pitmaster, an Old Virginia Smoke podcast. Be sure to subscribe and like the podcast, rate the podcast, and to share it out with all your friends. Also, be sure to check out the Old Virginia Smoke YouTube channel as well. Tune in next week for another great episode of Pitmaster. For companies interested in advertising, please contact Old Virginia Smoke directly via www.oldvirginiasmoke.com. Pitmaster, an Old Virginia Smoke podcast, is edited by Chris Sedenka. Pitmaster, an Old Virginia Smoke podcast, is a property of Old Virginia Smoke, LLC. All rights reserved. Copyright 2022.
Old Virginia Smoke.